I'm Elisa Mortensen, and this is Undo Redo. Let's take a look at all the things that happen in life that we would like to undo and have a chance to redo. Okay, guess what? Me and my fuzzy pink microphone get to video record this one because it was a suggestion given to me by one of my high school friends. She says, hey, if you recorded that on video, I would listen to them because I would have something to watch. So, what a better way to start recording myself, right? Hello to all of my listeners out there, wherever you may be. Now, my podcast is on the computer screen next to me, and I feel a little self-conscious. So usually I just sit here and it doesn't matter what I look like or where I'm looking, and now I'm thinking about those things. So I will be looking at the computer just to the side of the camera, and sometimes I'll look at the camera, but mostly I'm just going to be reading the podcast outline that I came up with. So here we go. I want to give a shout out to all my amazing fall of 2024 class because they're doing hard things and it's paying off. They're learning how to separate themselves and others from their behavior. We are not our behavior. We are not our thoughts. And the pain that we go through is something we're meant to be on the other side of, not what we identify with and bring with us and get stuck in. Anyways, my class, to you guys are doing it. You're rock stars. And I'm really impressed with how well people are facing their fears and how well they're letting things go. And it's all progress. It's all good. So Undo Redo course. It's for you if you need it, because we all have fears we got to get over. As for today's episode, this camera's really distracting. Just going to say, I'm a big fan of this unpopular topic. It's obviously marriage, right? Reviving your marriage. Who wants to talk about marriage? Something we all pretend we don't have issues with. Those who pretend, they got bigger issues than they want to admit, I'm sure. And it's when we don't talk about it that is the problem. Most of the times, notice the way they're talking about it makes it the other person's fault, right? But it always takes two to argue. So the key is to separate what lies in your control and what doesn't, right? Because we all want to blame each other. So what do we have control of and what we don't? Now, I'm a huge respecter of everyone's agency. I'm a big agency advocate, if you will, and allowing people to choose for themselves. I don't like it when we walk in demanding someone apologize or someone do better or they need to change what they're doing. I'm not a fan of any of that. So here's some ways that you can address your side of it. And you don't need them to be on board. You don't need them to agree with it. You don't need them to change the way, anything that they're doing. You don't need anything from them. And this is very different. Coaching is very different from therapy, where you go in and you tell people your needs and you give them accountability and you tally mark all the things that they're doing and keep track of whether they're doing a good job or not of meeting your needs. I don't believe in any of it. It didn't work for me. This is what worked for me. So here we go. Let's address just your side. All right, let's leave them out of it to a big extent. If you've been following me for a while now, you know that I say all the time, you don't need them to be on board before you can change. You don't need them to agree with it. You don't need them to do any of the heavy work, to apologize, to change, to line up, to be better, to treat you better. Like, you don't need any of it. And I know this isn't popular, and some of you are very infuriated with me when I say this, but hear me out, because I'm going to give you a few things on this Revive Your Marriage episode to wrap your mind around how to get passion and connection and that intimate relationship, that closeness with someone when it's dying or when it's getting choked out. Let me tell you some of the ways that it gets choked out. The biggest one is that we're hurting ourselves with our toxic thinking about them. They may be doing some things, but our thoughts about what they're doing add a lot more pain and are a lot more toxic than what they're actually doing. All issues start with this negative thought and negative story around it. We make up stories and thoughts as a reason to explain what's happening. These thoughts start to feel like facts when we keep believing them and when we see it's happening again. It's like confirming itself over and over. It's proving it true in our minds. Now, it may or may not be true. And the person we're with can end up looking like who we thought they were in the story in our mind, even if it's not actually true. We can convince ourselves that that's who they're being based on their behavior, right? Again, our brain's just trying to make sense of this stuff. So when we believe something strong enough, it can feel true to us. Whether it's true or not, it can make us feel angry, it can make us feel resentful, and that's the toxic story. That's the meaning we're giving behind it. And those feelings show up in our actions in ways that make us not behave like ourselves. We become the ones that are angry, and we become the ones that are resentful based on their behavior. It's like punishing ourselves with horrible emotions because of something someone else did. John Gottman, you can look him up, he calls this the 4 horsemen: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So there's the 4 things. We end up hurting ourselves with all of these negative feelings, and we become someone that we don't want to be. And we're blaming their behavior. So the key to have an honest conversation with yourself and your side of it is to start by admitting that you're feeling angry, that you are being unkind and having not kind thoughts, and that you don't want things to be this way. You don't like feeling this way. And take ownership. Your feelings are yours. They're not coming from anything else other than your thoughts. They're not coming from them. Your feelings are generated by a thought you're having. So if you feel really terribly and really poorly and really awful, it's the thought that you're thinking about what they're doing. We understand that they may be acting unkindly from unkindly thoughts that they have, and they're feeling hurt and upset by what they're thinking about us. So we have poor thinking about them, and they have poor thinking about us. But we learn more by listening than by what we say. We could say what we know all day long, but we learn by listening. So hear their side. You have to hear them out. And we ask questions like, how can we both feel seen and heard? Neither of us feel listened to right now. We're both right and we're both wrong. Because everyone's right and everyone's wrong. It's all perception, right? So what now? This kind of conversation helps you take ownership in what's happening for both of you. We're both angry here. There's no blaming. Like, this is a big mess. Let's take responsibility for our part. I'll own that I'm mad. And it cuts down the shame and the blame, and it lets you both be okay with where you're at. This is an argument. We both disagree. We're both upset. And then you can kind of move on. There doesn't have to be any pinning anyone's fault. And we can speak out loud that we know we want to make it better. Well, we both know we want to make this better. We both don't like being angry. We lay in bed and we face the other way. We're not even talking to each other. Take care of this. If you'd like help in your situation, just get on a call with me, reach out to me, and we can talk about it together, what it really looks like. Because sometimes people get stuck right about here with, I want it to be better, but it's still his fault, right? And then they can't get past but he needs to apologize, but he needs to do better, but I can't just accept this. And so there's a little bit of grudge there. And that's the next one that I'm going to talk about. So toxic thinking's one of them, the main one. And then the grudges. The grudge hurts us. How we see someone else keeps us stuck in the same cycle, and we won't let it go. Our commitment to hurting ourselves this way, you guys, we're all hanging on to grudges and blaming the other person. So to break out of this, it's really important to plan for what you're going to do differently next time. What you're going to do, not what they have to do differently. What are you going to do differently next time? And you keep your promise to yourself. Are you going to leave the room when you don't feel peaceful anymore? Are you going to say, if you use those words again, I'm going to walk out of the room, or I need a break in order to protect my peace? That's my number one lately. You're responsible to follow through on the changes you said you'd make. And sadly, you can't make changes on someone else's behalf. But you own your limits. You know what you'll put up with. You know for how long. and you know when you need to take a break. And there's no wrong choice here. You get to pick it because your feelings will guide you. You'll feel intense and you'll feel like, wow, my head's not really in the game. My emotions are too high. I'm going to take a break. And then honor that. Like, it's just so I can regain my logic and come back in a not so emotional way. But if you feel unsafe or uncomfortable and you keep staying around them and you don't listen to that, it just hurts you because you ignore those feelings that are coming up inside that are really intense, and it breaks trust with yourself. So if you need a break, take a break. If you need something, go do it. Go pay attention to it. Go acknowledge it. If you feel anxiety, if you feel panic, if you feel fear, go take care of it, right? Take care of yourself. The next two things are feeling disconnected and having different values. So we start feeling disconnected when we feel alone. We feel unsupported. We feel ignored. We don't feel as important as we think we should be in their lives. Like they're not choosing us and not making us a priority. And that's just a judgment based on what we see outwardly, right? But this can come from past problems that we didn't solve. Our negative thoughts that we're bringing with us can disconnect us from them and isolate us and make us feel alone, whether they're true or not. So what is it that your story is telling you? We didn't solve the negative thoughts, and all of these things make us feel like we don't want to be close anymore. We need distance from them because they're hurting us. So we push them away. So the disconnect, we feel like comes from them when they're not treating us the way we think they should. But notice how that's like controlling somebody else. We might blame another person for not caring more or feel like that we're not good enough to be loved. And that can make us feel further apart from them. So even though it's all just happening in our minds and it's the story we're making about it, it's a toxic thought to put it all on them. Again, we're directing it back to us and what we can do. It's our stories that we have, that we create from all the misunderstandings and all the miscommunications that we've had. How can you reframe or rewrite that story into one of love and connection? It's like slowly growing apart while you're living side by side. Instead of sharing your life together, you're just living it in parallel, right? You're not actually being an active part of each other's lives. And this can happen without us even noticing over time, because we think that by staying quiet, it keeps us from getting hurt more. But as time goes by, we hold on to those hurt feelings, and it makes us feel lonelier and less loved because we never let it go. So instead of waiting for them to choose you and show you more love, remind yourself why you choose them. And maybe they're feeling the same way. They feel isolated. You're turned the opposite way in bed too. So try to let go of any bad feelings you have toward them. And remember that you're not perfect either. You're both in this together, right? So think about how you can be kind to yourself and how you can take care of what you need on your side. They don't have to do it all for you. You have to be there for yourself. Right? Nobody's coming to make sure your thoughts are accurate about the person. You just wonder why you're so mad at them. Well, your thoughts are making you mad at them. And your thoughts, like they're doing bad things. They shouldn't have done that. Like that's why you're upset, is because you're judging it so bad. And you're the only person you can control. You can't control them. So having different values isn't really a deal breaker. You can live a long, happy life with someone who doesn't really believe in any of the things you believe in. We don't have to think alike, talk alike. Do you want them to be just like you? Do you want to be with someone who's exactly like you and to match everything together? I wouldn't. You don't want them to be anyone else than who they are. So you can't demand that they take priority in everything that you take priority in, because that would mean that you want them to be just like you. And there's no reason for that. It's really good to learn how to celebrate your differences and just be like, I don't feel that way at all. I literally don't see it that way. Instead of being so mad at them that they don't see it your way and have to try to convince them. You know, sometimes we think people are being so mean to us by disagreeing, but it's okay that they disagree. You just work with each other. Talk about it. Talk about your differences. Talk about the values that don't line up and that clash that happens and the tension that's in between there. What can you do to ease that tension and just be okay with the way people are and quit trying to have to change and control? Because you want to be yourself. You don't want to be the way they want you to. So let them be themselves and don't try to change them either. It's just so helpful to notice all these things that are happening on our side, because it gives access to noticing that they have these as well. The same things we're having, they have on their side. So we take care and clean up our side, they're likely to line up their side too, because they don't feel that judgment and that pressure anymore. And that respect that you start to have towards them, they'll mirror that back. Relationship is a lot of mirroring. The change happens when you show kindness and mercy to yourself for being so mad at them. And could that extend that grace and that mercy to yourself for being so judgmental? Like, wow, I've really been hard on them. I've made them apologize. I make them, how much control are you having over them in order for you to feel better? Give yourself some grace for that. Like, that's a lot of pressure to take on, controlling somebody else. Just be merciful and kind and graceful to you for behaving so poorly, and to them as well, because they behave poorly sometimes too. You're the only one who can decide what you should do next. You can't decide for them, like, what they should do next. All right. Again, this is all bringing the focus back to you and taking it off of them, so we have more control in our lives. We don't need them to be any different than they are. We can choose them still, just the way they are, and we line up our thoughts to be more accurate, more connected, and more loving, less judgmental, and give ourselves tons of grace and compassion to get there. We have the freedom to make all of our own choices, and they have the freedom to choose theirs. So this is all about communication, if you haven't noticed. The communication that happens between our ears, not really with the other person. It's what you're telling yourself. It's what expectation you've made up for them. And those are things you can't control. So think in ways that give kindness to you and kindness to them. And don't expect things from other people. That isn't your job. You can expect things from yourself, and you can be accountable to yourself. So start improving there. Start taking care of your mind and your thoughts and what you're showing up as to them, your own behavior, your own words. Start aligning that with who you really want to be to them. In this relationship, who do you want to be to them? The grudge holder, the nag, or do you want to be someone who is kind and very forgiving and takes them at face value for what they say and doesn't make a big stinking deal about all the things they're not doing or what they lack, focusing on everything they aren't? You probably want to be the person that focuses on everything that they are, right? Because we're all a bit of a mess. So this opens, like, if you wanted to talk about this or listen to this episode together, you can have some really good talks with your partner, knowing we're all a little bit of a mess. So let's kind of don't take anything so seriously. Don't take anything so personally. Let's enjoy life being a huge mess together and kind of work to clean it up together too. And check in with each other. Get to a place where you can notice your toxic thoughts and that you can agree with your partner that when you have them, you can just let them go. You don't even have to tell anybody. You don't need them to be on board, right? But when you notice your toxic thoughts, just let them go. Remember that you are not your thoughts, and your thoughts are not a fact. It's just some story you made up. We're offered like 60,000 thoughts a day. You don't have to take the ones that come to you. You don't have to take them up on that offer. Just be like, yeah, I know you told me that last time, and then I hurt myself with it, and then it caused anger. I'm just not even going to go there. I'd rather not. Just do something differently. Our relationship is made up of thoughts and stories. We get to choose what thoughts and stories. And if you've chosen it for a while, it's going to take a while to unchoose. So you can undo it and have a redo with a new thought at any time you want. If they're high quality, then the connection will be high quality. If they're low quality and blaming and grudgeful, then the connection you have with them will be low quality. Chances are you're pretending at that point. But we create our reality right here, right in between our ears. If anyone came to your mind while listening, share this with them right now. Be the one that heaven can go to reach other people. And be an answer to someone else's prayer. We need each other. We're much more useful when we up-level ourselves and when we progress ourselves. So get your head in the game and go do it. You don't need anybody else's permission but your own. All right? And to my class, I will see you in class. And to everyone else, get in touch with me if you want to see what this looks like in your life and in your relationship. All right. Talk to you again next week. Bye.